What is rejection sensitive dysphoria? Why does it come up? What feelings come up under it? How does it feel in the body? And why is it so intense for people with ADHD? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unstuck Minds podcast, episode 2. For those who don't know me, I am Lucia Punzaru. I am a somatic breathwork specialist and I help people to understand their negative feelings and to work with them and to transmute them in a healthy way. I have with me Sylvia Cosma. She's a co-founder for Strive Collective. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Lucia. Good to be here. And happy to have the second installment of our podcast already.
Me also. Thank you for coming and thank you for keeping me on track because I also have ADHD. And as we know, what we say in our minds is always better than what comes out of our mouth. So I have some notes here for the ones who are watching the videos. In this episode, we're talking about rejection sensitive dysphoria. I will talk about my experiences that I had with it, and how I handled with it. At the end, we will answer a few questions from our audience. So let's begin.
Yes. So, Lucia, I was wondering, because I know you already again wrote an amazing post for us on the Thrive Collective platform on rejection sensitive dysphoria. So I was thinking, can you say for the people who are just tuning in now for the first time, a little bit about what is rejection sensitive dysphoria exactly, and how did you even know for yourself that you're experiencing it in your life?
So rejection sensitive dysphoria is basically the fear of judgment and criticism, fear of disappointing people and of people's reactions. I had no idea that it has a name for it because I had it all of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I am overreacting and that I cannot control my feelings, I cannot answer properly, or it's all in my head. But basically,
Mm-hmm.
this is very real and it feels very strong in the body. So there are a few major feelings that show up very
Mm-hmm.
strongly in RDS, which is shame, rage or strong anger, panic, grief, and self-disgust. So basically, we will get in more in detail about each
Mm-hmm.
one of them. Have you ever felt also this type of stuff?
I feel like I've definitely had some internal criticism moments, but I feel like it doesn't qualify to the level of what rejection sensitive dysphoria actually is. So at least what I could get from your article and from what I also read online, it feels like a very, how can I say, physical and intense feeling. So from my side, I think that is like a level extra to what I personally have experienced in my life. But I'm curious about yourself because, of course, you have ADHD, as you've also mentioned, and people with ADHD do tend to get rejection sensitive dysphoria. So I'm super curious about your experience.
Yes, indeed. So let's talk first about the shame. When we feel shame, it's like in the body, it feels like a drop in the stomach.
Mm,
You feel like heat in your face. Your chest is tight, and you have the urge to defend yourself or to explain yourself. And this is very intense because it attacks your identity.
mm,
And neurodivergent people grew up with repeated microcorrections like you're too much, try harder, you're overreacting. And every time you feel this type of comments, you take it very, very personal and it attacks your identity. And then you feel the shame of not being able to rise up to people's expectations or not being able to literally react without feeling that intense shame. So in my life, multiple times I have been accused of things that I didn't do,
mm-hmm.
and my body was reacting like I actually did them. So basically, I felt guilty and shamed inside of my body, even though I didn't do anything. And that comes up because the nervous system got used to so many judgments and criticism and microcorrections that even if it wasn't true, my body was still reacting like it would have been true. Because shame was so ingrained in my body that even if it wasn't true, my body was reacting it
Mm,
like it was true. So if you are blamed multiple times along the years, then your body will take that as normal and that it's not okay. You're not okay what you're doing, even if you didn't actually do it. So every time I was judged or criticized, my body went into survival mode automatically. It didn't matter if it was true or not, the reaction was the same. My body learned that it has to react like that every single time. And how anger showed up into my life, because that's one of the biggest, shame and anger, rage are one of the biggest negative feelings. And if we don't really know how to control them or how to transmute them, then it can like literally ruin the relationship, the job, everything around us. Because every time I got angry, I couldn't really express it and let it out. So I internalized it. And I was literally having anger management issues. Every little thing was getting me angry. I was snapping at people. And for example, I was working with a very good friend of mine, which at the time she was my boss at work. And us ADHD people have when we have the excitement of having an excitement event in our lives or something exciting happens, we have tendency to say it straight away. We cannot keep it to ourselves. And if we say it later, then it doesn't give us any joy to even say it anymore, right? So then I was at my work with this friend of mine. She was my boss at the time. And I had something exciting happening in my life, and I wanted to talk to her, to tell her. And because she was very busy at the moment, she like literally rejected me. She was like, okay, we can talk about it later, but not now. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And just this little phrase like triggered in me the insecurity, the not feeling safe, not feeling seen. I felt like she's not valuing me, she's not prioritizing me and my needs and what I want to do, when it was actually just she was actually busy. So
Exactly.
I didn't
Should
have
just
any
communicate.
reason to react like that. Yes, so this is what rejection sensitive dysphoria does. It makes a small thing so big and so intense that we actually believe that we're losing that person and we're having ADHD. We have the tendency to insist and to work on it like straight away, right in the moment. And we also have panic, one of the subjects, not subjects, emotions. This one is pretty strong also. It's very intense. It's like anxiety on speed. And you feel it like the chest is tight, the stomach drops, the heart and the brain are racing, and they don't want to stop no matter what are you trying to do, no matter how much you try to intellectualize it and to understand it. The body is literally rejecting every logic that you try to put on it. So emotionally, it feels like no one wants you, no one likes you, and they will never will. And this is basically related to the survival mode, yeah, because you don't feel safe enough in your own body. And then you'll have that panic that you create stories in your mind and they seem so real. And your body reacts towards the stories that you tell yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious, when you say about these stories, like, can you give us an example of how did they show up in your life? Like maybe in your relationships or I don't know, at work. What kind of, I don't know, thoughts that weren't real, but that felt very real were you having at the moment?
Yes, I can, because I had a lot of them actually. Most of the times when I wanted to make a change, like to leave a relationship or to leave a job, or then it came up like a very strong inner conflict because my mind was actually trying to protect me, and it was creating stories that if I leave the job, I will find a worse one. What if I don't find where to stay? What if they don't pay me well? What if they are not treating me well? In a relationship, if someone was writing me and answering me to a message like after a few hours,
Yeah.
my mind already started to asking questions like, is he mad? Did I do something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Is he busy with someone else? And all those type of stories they are creating in our mind, and they're spiraling, and the more you think about it, the more you feel it, and the more you feel it, the
Mm-hmm.
more you think about it.
Yeah. So it feeds itself basically, like the body and the brain work to feed the story, the loop.
Yeah, and if you don't find a way to stop the story,
Mm-hmm.
then you're like getting into panic mode. You are short of breath, your heart is beating very fast. Sometimes it can get even to like fainting, because
Mm.
you are so scared of losing that thing
Yeah.
that you might even get to faint.
Wow, that sounds really intense. So then I have to think about, because you mentioned, the feeling of maybe losing something. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about, what does that go into that? Because there are a lot of feelings that connect to losing something. So one of them can be panic, the fear of losing something, but it can also be grief, right? Like that can be one of the feelings that shows up when you're already kind of imagining losing that thing. So I was wondering, is that part of the RSD experience as
Oh,
well? Is it
yes,
something you felt?
definitely. Because when you're thinking about leaving a place or leaving a person, even if it's just like a slight possibility to do it,
Mm-hmm.
your body and mind is already trying to protect you and prepare you for that moment in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Your chest feels heavy, you're crying out of nowhere very easily. And most of the times, you're not even aware that you're actually grieving that relationship or that job or that place.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like you already lost, even if you are still having it. So, for example, if you have an argument with your boyfriend, yeah,
Yeah.
and they say at anger, they are saying, like, we're done,
Mm-hmm.
then you already think about it and grieving like the relationship it's actually done. So just this slight moment of anger and fight between a couple,
Mm-hmm.
it can get like very deep into anger, into grief, into panic. If you have RDS, it's like a roller coaster.
So, Lucia, can you tell me a bit? You mentioned, and I also said about, a bit of lack of confidence, maybe, or that inner critic voice. So, can you tell me a little bit more about how that manifests in RSD? Because I have the feeling that it's actually stronger than just, inner criticism that a lot of people can face.
Yeah, well, self-disgust is basically shame given by yourself to yourself. And it's your inner critic every time you tell yourself that, why did you react like that? Why you're
Mm-hmm.
exhausting? Why you're too much? This is pathetic. Why did I do or say that? This inner critic is amplified like 200%, and it gives you the criticism and the judgment that you don't get from others. And because, for example, in here, I had the fear of making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So even the smallest mistakes that I was doing, and even if people were saying, that's okay, we can sort it out, don't worry about it, I was criticizing myself and beating myself so hard for it. And I wanted to be so small and invisible. I wanted to just get out of the room, no one to see me, and to like literally hide.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because of all the micro corrections that were applied on people or on children for
Mm-hmm.
a very long time, long periods of time. And it feels safer to blame yourself, because if you blame yourself, you know that it's on you and you can sort it out by yourself, than if you blame others. Or it's safer for you to hide and to blame yourself, because that protects the connection, it protects the relationship, it protects the workplace or whatever the situation is. And that's why most of the time we redirect that to ourselves,
Mm.
because we consider it as a threat to our survival, to our connectivity, to our belonging.
Yeah,
And
to break the relationship basically.
yes, and this also, it gives you the, it makes you a people pleaser,
Mm.
because you are being afraid of disturbing people or to not upset them or disappointing them. And in that willingness of wanting for people to see you in a specific way, you are lowering your standards, you have no boundaries or very small boundaries, or people step on your boundaries because you say it but you don't enforce it, you don't hold it. Also, you don't say no, you never say no, you overgive. If you have a friend that wants to vent on you, it has an issue and you are already tired, you're not saying no, you're just I need to be there for my friend. So all of this stuff, it makes you also avoid difficult conversation just to not let people down.
Yeah, that can be a lot. And I'm thinking maybe you will answer some of these questions or this main question also by answering the questions that the audience asked. But I'm just wondering for myself and for the public who's listening to us for the first time, how did you actually manage to break this cycle? Because it sounds like, with shame and self-disgust and rage and grief, like these are all super intense emotions. So how did you manage to move from them to the person that I now know that you are, who is a lot more, self-confident, grounded, balanced within herself? Just a little bit, if you can take us through your journey.
Well, first of all, I had to find ways to make myself aware when the feelings were rising. So that means to connect more with my body and observe the reactions that I have for which feelings and where do they feel in the body. To gain this awareness, meditation helped me a lot. We have meditations with scanning the body, which those ones are very important because it teaches you to notice where you feel and how you feel in the body. And when you feel that sensation, you know that either you need to stop, either you can go on and you can control it. Then we need to interrupt the pattern. Once you know how your body reacts to anger, for example, then you feel already the heat rising up, and then you know that it's the time to stop.
Okay.
Because if you don't stop at that moment, then you can lash at someone
You'll go
or
all out.
ruin something that can be important. Yeah. So usually when I feel this type of heat in the body for anger, I usually stop and take a few deep breaths, inhale through the nose. Sometimes it's good to have that pause at the end of the inhale for a few seconds and then exhale it longer. The longer the exhalation, and even if you get like a sigh out or like a hum, a lower voice, and watch where the vibration feels in your body, this everything, it cools it down. And maybe it doesn't cool it down fully 100%, but we just need to calm down at least 10% so we are able to avoid a conflict. So this would be the first of all, to interrupt the pattern, to catch yourself when you are getting in that anger mode. Also, we can do somatic reset. So every feeling, it lasts 90 seconds maximum if you don't feed it with a story.
Okay, super good.
If you feed it with the story, then it escalates. But if you manage to sit those 90 seconds without giving it any story, just observe it and feel it in your body, then it automatically goes away. You can stand up, slightly bend on your knees, inhale deeply, and exhale with the sound, low and steady. You can be like, and as I said before, the longer the exhale, the more you signal to your nervous system that you are safe, you are not threatened, you are not dying, nothing wrong is happening. You are showing that you can be safe even in the midst of chaos. You can still be safe, you can still be okay.
I love that you can still be safe in the middle of chaos.
Oh, yes, that's a big one because we all have the tendency to control things and outcomes. And most of the times, if you don't have control of an outcome or of something that you actually want and really, really want it, it's very difficult to detach and stay controlled and composed, emotionally speaking. Because if you are not detaching, then you are that need of control, it gives the sense of urgency, and then the panic can come up, or the anger can come up, or the will to try to fight and do something about it. And the more you do something about it, the more the situation doesn't sort out, and the more anger you get, and the more negative feelings show up to the surface.
Yeah.
So if you learn to just accept that some situations are not really in our control, and in those times to learn how to regulate the nervous system, then we can learn to be calm in the midst of chaos, and then everything sorts out by itself usually.
Love that. Perfect.
So after we have this regulating of the nervous system, because first we need awareness, right, to catch ourselves. Then we are regulating our nervous system and our body, and then it's time for reflection. And we're reflecting about the situation, about what was said, how was it said, what could have been done better, what triggered us, and just think about what does that say about you, or what does that say about that person. And then with reflection, you gain the clarity that you need.
I love that. So first interrupt, then regulate, then actually you can think about things. You cannot think about things probably when you are emotionally enmeshed with the situation.
Yeah, definitely. Where you're in the midst of high emotions, then you definitely cannot take the right decisions for yourself. You cannot think clearly, because you already have the story and you're already feeding that story. And no matter what the other person tells you, even if they're right, you won't hear it, and you won't see it, because you already feeding that story and you are already angry. So once you reflect a little bit, then you can actually hear what the other person says.
Yeah, very true. Lucia, I know you wanted to share, I think because I interrupted you, you wanted to share one more breathing exercise, if I'm not mistaken. And then I wanted to ask, shall we have a very short break before we dive into the audience's questions? What do you think?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I wanted to share one more exercise which is really helpful. The box technique. When you breathe in 4 seconds, you hold it 4 seconds, you breathe out 4 seconds, and you hold it again 4 seconds. That also helps you focus on how long you keep the breathing, and that means your emotions are going down. And there's also breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out for 6 to 8 seconds, also on the mouth, through the mouth. So these breathing techniques, there are a lot of them, and most of them, doesn't matter which one it's used, as long as the exhale is longer, if it has also a little sound on it, and if you can manage to focus on the sound, then it definitely helps cool down the situation, and then you can reflect on it and see what it can be done about it.
Yeah, super, super good insights. Thank you for that. Okay, then I will say let's take a 1 minute break, and then we tune back in with the audience to answer the questions that the audience shared, because they are really good questions. So I want us to get to them in enough time.
Okay, of course.
All right. Well, welcome back, Lucia, and welcome back, everybody still listening to us.
Thank you.
I wanted to, as I mentioned, give a bit of time to the questions that the audience shared with us beforehand. And I also have the same as Lucia, a few notes with the questions here, because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything important. So let's see. Lucia, the first question that Lunatic wanted to ask you is, how do you deal with the somatic crisis after releasing your armored state when you have fragmented parts when triggered with RSD? And for extra details, she mentioned, having a somatic crisis after her body being in a braced state for years and years. So 30 years, she mentioned, possibly longer, with no emotional expression and stuckness for several weeks. She mentioned complaints like, constant somatic shifting, also pelvis shift at her atlas, her neck. And that her fragmented parts have lost all stability as a constant negative presence is now being worked through, let's say. So how can you support that from a somatic perspective? How would you deal with that?
Well, when someone releases a long-held armored state, especially one that's been in place for decades, the nervous system can feel destabilized. What looks like crisis is often reorganization. So the
Mm.
inner critic has dissolved. The parts that were previously suppressed will surface.
Mm-hmm.
That can feel like fragmentation or identity loss or intense childlike emotions. And if we add RSD trigger that mirrors early abandonment, and the
Mm-hmm.
system can interpret it as a threat. So first we need to stop processing and we need to stabilize. Press your hands firmly into a wall for a minute and feel the strength which you're pressing with. You need to slow your breath, inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds, or you can stamp your feet gently into the ground and feel your heels. You need to feel safe before you have any type of insight.
Mm-hmm.
Second, we need to orient. Just look around in the room or outside or wherever you are and name 5 things that you can see. Say today's date and where you are out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly and say, I am the adult and I am here. This reduces fragmentation by bringing the system into the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that separation lowers intensity during this integration period. You need to avoid major relational decisions for at least 72 hours after the trigger. Activated child parts distort perception. So this phase is not regression, it's actually reorganization.
Super valuable perspective. And yeah, I hope it helps Luna because it's definitely a useful reframe, let's say. So it's not something bad that is happening. Actually, it's just your nervous system reorganizing itself after a major release, let's say.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm. And then I have a question that somewhat ties into this from Connie Buhagiar. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. She also mentions about, somatic manifestations, but this time in the case of kids and teens. So she mentions if her kid or teen has an episode of RSD. They are 13-year-old. They are struggling, being at school. It's hard to do these kind of regulation exercises when they are triggered because everybody notices. So what can they do actually in the moment to still overpass an episode of RSD?
When a teen with RSD is triggered at school and
Mm-hmm.
cannot walk away or do obvious breathing exercises, we work with micro regulation that no one can see. So it can be like tiny muscle activation. Press toes firmly into the inside of the shoe, or press the knees together for 10 seconds and release. Or it can push the fingertips lightly into the edge of the desk and
Mm-hmm.
focus on the contact and on the press, the push that it's using. So small contained muscle engagement tells the nervous system that the child has the control. Also, he or she can use micro exhale. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
deep breathing, just slightly slower, softer exhale through the nose. Even if shortening the inhale and gently lengthening the exhale by 1 second, it helps and no one will notice.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it can have like visual anchoring. Just pick one neutral object in the room, like a clock or a corner of a poster, and focus on the details for 20 seconds. Like what colors does it have, what
Mm-hmm.
shape or textures, and this interrupts the rejection story loop.
Love that.
Also, he or she can say internally that this is just a wave, that I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to act, I can respond later, because RDAs urges immediate reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Delayed, delaying action protects relationships. And importantly, if this is happening frequently, the child needs a pre-agreed regulation plan with the teacher, like not leaving the class dramatically, just permission to stand in the back of the room to get some water or to switch the seats for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they can't live physically, they create safety internally. So the goal is not to stop the feeling, the goal is to prevent escalation until the wave
Mm.
passes.
Super important. And I love that you're also bringing the teacher into this because it's definitely a systemic thing. It's not just for the child themselves to manage, through their own means that they have, again, as a young person, but also to, yeah, reach out to the adult in the room. And this way we also learn that, hey, certain allowances are important for children who are experiencing these episodes.
Yeah, and also having adult support, it helps a lot with the
Mm.
child feeling safe
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
and knowing.
we were talking a lot about right safety and how RSD actually plays into that feeling of safety.
Yeah, and if the child feels safe enough to reach out to the adult, and then the child knows that it has support no matter what it happens, that
Mm-hmm.
can be supported in the event that is happening.
Yeah, yeah, super important. And then we have another question from Jim Leppingwell here. He also conducts sessions, and I spoke to Jim a little bit. He has a super interesting program of whittling, so creating things with your hands, right? As you do certain breathing exercises or, as you process things. And one question that came up for him in the session that he ran was about the pause. So specifically about the vagal break that enables responses rather than reaction. So responding versus reacting. And he was wondering what are some good ways to remember to remind yourself basically to pause in the heat of the moment.
Ooh, this is a big one because you need a lot of practice for this.
Mm-hmm.
You need to catch yourself in the moment. So you need to practice this mostly when you are calm, because
Mm-hmm.
this vagal break or pause is not something that you remember because you're calm. You are remembering it because you trained it when you were calm. So in the heat of the moment, cognition drops, and the reminder, it has to be simple and rehearsed. So how we can do that? We can use a physical cue. Press your thumb and index finger together, or place your tongue on the roof of your mouth, or feel both of your feet in the ground. The body cue becomes the pause trigger, not just a thought, a sensation. Also, we can install one short phrase, not like a paragraph, just one line.
Mm-hmm.
Say it out loud or in your head. Pause, not urgent. Respond, don't react, or even just wait. These repeated phrases during calm states, they become automatic under stress. And that will be a third one, build a rule. For example, no difficult conversations without one full breath. No sending messages when heart rate is elevated, or no reply in the first 30 seconds, because rules remove negotiations. So when you set yourself that rule, your body remembers you, hey, I have this rule, so you put it in practice, and the more you put it in practice, the more you remember about taking that breath, that
Mm-hmm.
pause. And also it can be track activation signals. Like
Mm-hmm.
most people have a predictable sign before reaction: tight jaw, hitting the chest,
Mm-hmm.
fast speech, shallow breath. For me, most of the times it's heating rising up. And when I feel that, it's treat that as a signal, as a bell. Like the sensation means that this is the time and the moment to pause.
Mm-hmm.
And this pause is not about suppressing the emotion, it's about buying 3 to 5 seconds of choice. And the vehicle break is trainable, but only if we practice it when nothing is wrong.
Yeah, super important. So basically, train it when you are in the state of training it, and then you can kind of fall back a little bit on that training rather than trying to push through when you're activated.
Yeah, definitely. You need to practice it as much as you can. Like I was practicing slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I found myself that I am in a rush, that I am hurrying up, that I want to do stuff and I don't have any pause. As I said with that phrase, I repeated myself out loud: slow down.
Mm-hmm.
There's time for everything. I have plenty of time to do everything. And I repeated myself every time I caught myself doing that. So anyone can train it, as long as I said, as long as they have this awareness and
Mhm.
they set some ground rules that they will follow.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Lucia. Super valuable insights. And I hope everybody who is listening can also take something for themselves, whether it's the people who ask the questions or somebody new who is tuning in and just hearing your insights for the first time. Thank you so much for
Yes.
the time.
Thank you so much also for coming. And if the audience has any more questions, you can write in the comments or
Mhm.
contact me on Instagram. My Instagram is Lucia Lavinia 5, LuciaLavinia 5. So you can find me there with all of the questions that you have or with anything that is related to neurodivergent or negative feelings or breath work, whatever curiosities you have, I am always willing and open to talk about it. So
Amazing.
thank you so much, Sylvia, for coming,
Thank
and
you,
I'll see you
Lucia.
guys next time.
See you next time, all. Bye.
Bye.
Sure.